Hello there and welcome to my new project. For this one I picked a really special motif, a geisha. I spent a long time looking for the right reference image. Since I'm working with wood, it couldn't be too complex, but also not too simple. Finding that balance was surprisingly tricky. Recreating those delicate facial features using veneer will definitely be a challenge, but that's exactly what I'm excited about. If you want to see more projects like this, feel free to check out my channel and hit subscribe. Let's talk about the veneer selection, which is especially important for a piece like this. For the face I'm using European Maple. It's light in color with a subtle grain, perfect for fine details. The facial features are made from black dyed tulip wood. It gives great contrast and is easy to work with. I'm also using black tulip wood for the hair, the clothing and the shaded areas of the flowers. The red flowers in the background are made from Parduk. For the background I'm using grey dyed birch veneer. If you want to know how I got the birch dyed grey, check out my latest video or the short I posted about it. Let's dive into the actual project. We are starting with the most challenging part, the face. As mentioned earlier, the face is made from maple, and for the facial details I'm using black dyed tulip wood veneer. Both veneers have been pre-treated with a thin layer of wood glue on the back. This stabilizes them and helps prevent cracking while cutting. I'm using a printed paper template as a guide. I carefully place it on the maple veneer and start scoring the outlines of the facial features with a knife. Now I lift the paper just a bit. Important, paper must stay in place on the veneer. If it shifts, the spacing between the facial elements will be off and the proportion will look odd. Here you can see the outlines of the eye, lightly scored into the surface. Next I carefully cut out the entire eye. You can see the cutout eye. To fill the gap, I place the black tulip wood veneer behind the opening and trace the contours through the cut. Precision is everything here. The better the fit, the cleaner the result. Here's the outline on the black veneer. Next I will cut out the eye completely. And here's the cutout piece. It should now fit exactly into the opening in the maple veneer. And yes, it fits perfectly. I'm now securing it with a bit of wood glue so it won't shift anymore. Here's the completed eye. I end up changing my mind last minute and decide to cut out the pupil as a separate piece. That way the different grain direction makes it stand out even more from the rest of the eye. I repeat this exact process for all the other facial elements. Since filming such delicate cuts is super tricky, I will show the rest through photos. And here's the finished face. What do you think? The contrast between the light maple and dark tulip wood really makes the facial features pop. Now that the face is done, let's move on to the second most challenging part, the hair. I spent quite a bit of time thinking about how to approach it. Should I use one large piece? Or maybe smoked eucalyptus? The natural grain might add more depth. In the end, I decided to go a different route. I will break the hair down into individual strands. You can see the rough plan for the layout. The green lines indicate the wood grain direction. This helps the final structure look more natural. The long strands on either side of the face, along with the hair ornament, will come later, once the face has already been inlaid into the background. The process is exactly the same as with the face. I first cut the shape out of the maple and then fill it with black dyed tulip wood veneer. This lets me work precisely along the template without anything shifting. For the lighter accent in the hair, I'm using grey dyed birch eye maple veneer. It adds a nice bit of contrast to the overall look. And here's the finished face. I intentionally left the neck a bit longer. I will trim it down later to fit. The spots you see on the surface are just traces of wood glue. They will disappear completely once everything is sanded and cleaned up. I'm honestly super happy with how it turned out so far. Now let's move on to the clothing. I think the correct name is kimono. For the main fabric of the kimono, I'm once again using black dyed tulip wood veneer. For the fine accent lines, I'm going with grey dyed tulip wood. And the blade will be made from kingwood. That should give it some nice contrast and a bit of depth to the piece. Just like with the hair, I'm dividing the kimono into separate segments. Here you can see the planned layout in the direction of the grain for each part. To transfer the individual segments onto the veneer, I attach the template, carefully score all the outlines, and I cut each part out completely. Here's one of the finished cutout pieces. Next I cut along the scored fold lines and inlay them with grey dyed tulip wood veneer. That adds a sense of depth and movement to the folds of the fabric. Here's the first completed section. I used the same method for all the remaining pieces of the kimono. And here's the finished kimono. It means the geisha figure itself is now completed. You can really see how the face and clothing work together. Everything is coming together nicely. The composition looks really great. Let's move on to the background. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm using gray stained birch veneer for this part. To position everything correctly, I'm working with my usually printed paper template. I'm starting with the flowers on the right hand side. For those, I'm using Partook and black dyed tulip wood veneer. The technique is the same as with the face. First I cut a precise opening into the background, and then fill it with perfectly fitting pieces of the other veneers. Since the process is quite repetitive, I will show the progress with photos. And here are the finished flowers. I think the colors really pop against the grey background. Next we are placing the geisha into the background. I start by placing the head on the template to mark the exact position. Once everything lines up, I carefully fix the head onto the background. Here you can see the fully secured head in place. Next I gently score the outline into the background veneer. Here's the scored outline in the background to guide the next step. Now I cut out the full shape of the head from the background. Here's the finished cutout. Now I can insert the head. It should fit as precise as possible. And here's the head fully inlaid into the background. Now I repeat the same process for the kimono. And here's the finished result, with the geisha inlaid into the background. Everything fits nicely. We are almost done now only the flowers on the right side are left. I'm doing them the same way as the ones on the left, so I will just show you some photos here. So here she is, the finished geisha. I'm honestly really happy with how she turned out. Even though there are still some glue marks here and there, you can already see how much character the piece has. But we are not done yet. The most critical step is still ahead, pressing the piece. So now I am preparing everything as usual. First I tape the front side using veneer tape. The glue activates with water. Then I remove the masking tape from the back. And with that it's ready to go into the press. I press the geisha on a baseboard and veneer the reverse side with birch veneer. The whole thing is left to cure overnight. Here it is after pressing. Everything went well and we've got a smooth and even surface. Now I remove the veneer tape just with water again. This is what it looks like now. Still a bit messy, but it's coming together nicely. Before sanding, I trim the piece to its final size and veneer the outer edges. And it's time for sanding and finishing. So here she is, my finished geisha. A project that really pushed me at times, but also brought a lot of joy along the way. The face in particular was a real challenge. So much of her expression depends on the tiniest details. One small mistake and the whole character would feel off. But in the end, I think the precision work really paid off. She looks calm and dignified, exactly what I had in mind. For the kimono, I choose a dark veneer. It helps the light tones of the face stand out more and add a sense of calm to the overall composition. The The reddish bell brings a nice warm accent to balance it out. The flowers surrounding here aren't just decorative, they are meant to frame the entire scene. They are made from countless tiny parts, and honestly, they took the longest. Every curve, every leaf, every single line was cut, shaped and fitted by hand. The dark shading around them adds a lovely sense of depth to the whole piece. All in all, I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's amazing what you can express with veneer. No paint, just natural texture and grain. It was a ton of work, but definitely worth it. I hope you enjoy the piece as much as I do. If you'd like to see more projects like this, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Got questions or ideas for future pieces? Drop them in the comments. And if you're curious about what else is possible with wood veneer, patience and a bit of creativity, stick around, there's more to come.